I'm waiting for epoxy to dry on the tool cabinet base, so I thought I would clean off my workbench, and that made me think maybe I should give a tour of it. I use Benchcrafted plans and some of their hardware to build a Roubo, a split top Roubo. I'm not very good at following plans, so I made some changes along the way. I think the biggest one is that this is a notably wider top. It's about 29 inches wide. And the workbench is about 8 feet long. This is what the bench often looks like. One side is pretty close to clean so that I can actually work on a project. And the other end just holds all sorts of stuff. Some woodworking stuff, but stuff. This is the first workbench that I built. Built it about nine years ago. Prior to that, all of my woodworking was really up against a old dining table that was pushing into a basement jack post. And I also had a much higher workbench built into the wall that I could work against, neither one of which were any good, of course. Once I figured out that this hand tool woodworking thing seemed like a good idea, I pretty quickly set to trying to build something. I didn't really feel very good about my skills, however. So I didn't want to spend the money on some good lumber, some hardwood like maple or cherry, to try building this thing that I might just totally mess it up and make just a big pile of firewood. So yeah, I went with this Burrill for 2x4s, which have been pretty good. I've been mostly satisfied with it. By far, the biggest problem is that the wood is quite soft. It's easy to see a bunch of marks on the top here. Again, that's really the result of it being so soft. The soft top here has taken a lot of damage. See some epoxy and just huge dents and, well, lots more epoxy. Certainly I've gotten my use out of it, but it's also not in great shape. Especially along the front edge here, you can see just how torn up this all is. I have since seen the suggestion of just throwing a piece of nicer wood on the outside edge. You know, a bit of soft maple or cherry would really make a big difference here. But that wasn't a thing I knew about at the time. I've really enjoyed working on the Roubo. It's got a lot of great features, so let's kind of run through them. I started out with just a normal strip of dog holes, but added a few more as I needed them. Certainly don't need to fill the entire top with holes. It's just not necessary. This is where I'm really working usually, and these couple of extra holes here really get a lot of use. I made a planing stop. It's almost as old as the bench. It's in terrible shape, and one day I'll remake it, but for now it's still pretty good. It goes in 2 dogs to hold itself steady, and I had made this hole first for it, but that one is also good. My choice kind of depends upon whether or not I want to also throw a holdfast down on the edge of whatever board I might be holding. For holdfasts, I'm using the Lie-Nielsen ones. You know, at the time when I bought these, I feel like there was a lot of talk about other manufacturers and how some holdfast did not work well, and I was surprised to see no discussion really of the Lie-Nielsen ones. So I wasn't sure if I was buying some garbage or buying something good. But I was able to try them at one of their open houses and seemed okay enough, so I gave them a shot, and they've worked great. I've really liked them. I kind of laugh at the current price. They're like $100 for one now. I got two for $50 when I bought them. So yeah. Another dog hole item here is the Lee Valley brass stops here. I really keep this one down here in the end for long boards, and of course you can just push it all the way down to have a flush surface so it doesn't get in the way. They work good. This is the other sort of hold fast item that I have and use sometimes. Veritas clamping hold fast. Recommended, especially if you've got a more delicate piece that you don't want to smash into place with the hammer. Being able to screw this down makes a lot of sense. Down here at the other end of the bench, I have a tail vise using the same Veritas hardware, the tail screw, and a piece of walnut for the handle. The end cap here is cherry, maple cherry laminate. And then the sliding dog here is a piece of oak. It works fine, I guess. Honestly, I don't know that this was worth adding to the bench. I use it quite rarely. I would probably put a tail vise in a new bench just because that's the easiest time to add it. But again, I'm not really sure it's worth it. I really don't use it much at all. The vice chop is made of hard maple, and the handle here is walnut. And I have lined the chop and the bench with a piece of leather. The chop's about 9 inches wide. I think that's a really good width. I like having something that wide. You might notice down below that I couldn't resist the Benchcrafted hardware and did have to go for the crisscross with that. The crisscross works really well with wider material, but I don't know. I think I've done something wrong in order to clamp really anything small. I have this little block of wood that prevents the bottom of the chop from totally closing in, and that's what maintains the angle to pinch in the vise here. So I don't know. I looked a little bit after I built this to see what I maybe did wrong, that it doesn't want to help maintain pressure on small pieces, but I never really found an answer, and honestly didn't care that much because this little block of wood works just fine to help maintain the angle and the pressure on thinner pieces. Oh yeah, so the rail that the dead man rides in, that's just a piece, two pieces. A piece of red oak and a piece of white oak that are just glued up and then shaped. I do have a sliding dead man here. Again, I don't really use it too much, but I'm glad I have it. In fact, you might be able to see here that I use it so little that I never even drilled the dog holes for it. When I do use it, I just clamp to this piece and that works fine. You might be getting the feeling of a trend here with some different woods. This is sapelli. I used a lot of different stuff, a lot of different material, just things that looked good or that I found that were interesting. I went with the Benchcrafted plans to build the bench, but I did not go with the Benchcrafted vise. This is just a Lee Valley tail vise screw. It works okay. It's nowhere near as smooth as the Benchcrafted easily spun stuff, but it works pretty well. I do have a shelf on the bottom of the bench here, and the shelf is made of birch. Actually, I had some fun with this because this is not just plain birch. This is tea-stained birch. It's a pretty tight fit right now. But yeah, it's a tea-stained birch. I painted tea on it. I brewed tea and painted it on it and then set it out in the sun, and that deepened up the birch substantially. And yeah, here it is as a shelf now. It's a really great color. Actually, I usually have my shelf here completely covered, and so you know, it's covered in other stuff. So that great color doesn't really show through too much, but it really does look nice. Back on the top again, the gap stop is probably visually a rather defining thing of the split top design. I don't actually use this very much anymore. I've only raised it up here like this for this video. The last time I did it was, I'm sure, quite a few years ago. Yeah, I don't use it too much. Now, prior to building the tool cabinet, I did actually find it really useful to set tools down in. You know, it is a good way to keep some organization and hold things, you know, like chisels. This wood is Makor. I chose it because it was a great contrast to the other two slabs, and because it was incredibly cheap. I think it was only like $2 a board foot or something, and so I couldn't resist. A few other details of the bench. It can be disassembled. The two slab tops are just screwed down to the ends, and then the ends, the legs, they can be pulled apart, and yeah, so you can move it. The way the ends come apart is that the Benchcrafted barrel bolts, I did use some more of the Benchcrafted hardware, Benchcrafted barrel bolts run through here to the shelf support. So yeah, that can be taken apart. I'm not sure if it's because this Burrill fir is some rather soft wood, but I have over the years needed to periodically tighten things up. As I said, it could also be because I do some resawing here, and so it's subject to a lot of racking. Anyway, tighten it up every once in a while, and everything has been pretty strong. One other detail is that I've got a couple of Rockler's workbench casters attached to one end of the bench, and only one end. I don't really move this much, and usually it will just be a slight repositioning that I'm doing. But yeah, I feel like I can just pop up one end and move it without too much difficulty. Obviously, I got to pop up the other side too. But I can lift the far end just enough to be able to maneuver it whenever I need to. For those who might have been counting along, I think there are 10 different woods on the workbench. Again, I really just picked the variety because I thought it was fun to add some color and contrast, and some of it was cheap. The Burrill fir for the primary bench was probably a good idea given my skill, but if I were to build another workbench, well, first I would definitely go for another split top Roubo. I really like this design. I would build it out of some better wood, cherry or maple, or whatever else I could find for relatively cheap that was a bit harder. The other design change that I really made from the Benchcrafted stuff was the width here. This is 29 inches deep. The Benchcrafted and most workbenches are 24 inches. I thought that just sounded like something that was going to be a bit too narrow. You know, if you're working on a large cabinet, 24 inches is not an unreasonable size for that. So you've got to have your project then centered on this. And later on, when I would get interested in chair making, what I found was people with 24-inch benches complain a lot because it's too narrow when you consider the splay of the legs and start getting to the point of assembly. Having something deeper is wonderful. You know, I can put a chair up here and work at leveling the feet or whatever without any fear of it just falling off. So yeah, I would definitely build it deeper again as well. 29, 30 inches seems about perfect. Another detail that might be perhaps relevant or important, when I got all these 2x4s, I very quickly dismissed the idea of planing them by hand. That was really when I committed to adding a power tool, the DeWalt 735 planer. That took care of cutting off the corners and making sure it was each board was parallel and that sort of thing. So that was definitely worthwhile. The fir is lighter weight, of course, and that's definitely a drawback. Using a heavier wood would make a heavier bench, which would move a bit less when I'm resawing. But this has still been pretty good. With all the other pieces of heavier wood that I've got on here, as well as often having the shelf below completely filled with assorted jigs and everything, the bench is right around 300 pounds, I believe, which is enough to be stable for most needs. So yeah, I think that's been okay. My only real complaint about the fir is just how soft it is, and you know how much I've been able to damage the top over the years. On the other hand, I've had it for 9 years, and since I can remove these, I could actually build new tops and mount those, you know, out of some better wood. So maybe I'll pursue that one day. For now, I'll just keep using it till it's dead. I think I've only had to reflatten this once, and I question whether or not that was even necessary. My memory is that after I built the bench, I got this slab in great shape, and this slab, like half of it in great shape. And working on some bigger projects, actually it might have been for the tool cabinet that I finally did it. I kept running into problems because that end, this slab, that end was a little bit higher and had a little bit of twist to it. So I took care of that and then, you know, went over the whole thing and I guess reflattened it. I didn't really remove much of anything from this end, even though this is the end that I really work at all the time. There are a handful of tools that stay on the bench that I make constant use of. Leather strop being the most important to keeping the tools in good shape. I strop a lot to maintain a good edge on chisels or planes, and having it right here on the bench means that it's always here for me to use. This little block is arguably one of the first sort of projects I tried to do. I use that as a coaster. It's just a piece of pine. I think it's square. I say that and I don't think it looks square. Anyway, yeah, just a piece of pine that I leave here and use as a coaster. The DeWalt 9-foot tape measure is, I think, the perfect size. Again, 9 feet, that's more than I actually usually need for most measurements. you know, most furniture isn't actually that big, and a lot of boards will only be 8 foot long anyway. The rule is long enough, or the tape is long enough or wide enough to be easily seen and not to just fall over from its own weight like some of the much thinner tapes available. And then with the metal clip and the metal wrapping around, this attaches with magnets easily to things. So I have a couple of these. This is a fantastic tape measure. I definitely recommend it. Moving down here a little bit, this is just a 6-inch rule, steel rule. This one is from Lee Nielsen, but I'm guessing everybody's seen these from no-name makers. It's nothing special, but I just like having a short straight edge, mostly for drawing and other marking on paper, not really for woodwork specifically. I have a pile of pencils and pens that I use. The Graph Gear 1000 are excellent pencils. Part of what I really like about them is that the edge here, or the end here, retracts. So you really can't stab yourself with the pointy tip if, you know, if you throw this in a pocket, or even just, you know, leave it on the bench and might grab it from the wrong end. You can't stab yourself as long as you put it back. So I have the 0.5, 0.7, and 0.9. They're color-coded, gray, blue, and yellow. And the 7 and 9 are really best for on wood, and the 5 I mostly use on paper. I have a couple of sketch pencils that I had turned here that I use for wood, for marking on wood. I use these mostly just to make rough marks, and I think it's a lot of fun to be able to have such a nice pencil to be able to do that work. You know, just to be able to scrawl that this piece is for this purpose, or you know, write down the length of something or whatever. Of course, the white one is great for walnut or sapelli or anything like that. And the red is I'm going to say I use that just as a complement to often using the black, just as a way to differentiate what I might be doing. I have a couple of rollerball pens that that I write with a lot. Again, I turn these. Actually, only one rollerball pen. The other one here is a fountain pen. I have a green tube in it. Okay, and then the last things I got here are a couple of marking knives. This is a blue spruce Claro walnut handle. I think this is called the thin blade, not the ultra thin blade, but the thin spear point blade. Spear point is definitely my preference for marking anything, because I can both draw with it as well as pull away, and I can be sure that I'm registering a flat against the square or whatever ruler I'm using. And then I've also got here a Vesper. I don't remember what this wood is, but it's really fantastic. I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but it's really nice stuff. And actually, I'm going to say that I use this for much more rough work. The blade's a bit thicker and heavier, and so I might use that if I'm scoring a line for a rough cut, or actually, I guess probably the thing I most use this for is cutting rolls of sandpaper, cutting a piece off. Anyway, those are the things that sit on the bench. So yeah, this is my workbench, arguably the centerpiece to the workshop. Thanks for watching. If you've got questions or comments, please drop them below.